Greetings, everyone, on the SciFiction Awesomeness. My name is Owen C. Cotter, and you're here watching SciFiction on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and X, like the X-Men. Today, we're going to have an amazing guest coming here shortly, next it's actually 10, 15 minutes. Her name is Winifred Philips. She's a game composer. She does things with like video games, fantasy games, all kind of goodies, games you definitely will know, and some up-and-coming projects. She's also nominated for a Grammy Award this year, which is super cool. So we're looking forward to talking with her. Before we start the broadcast with her, I wanted to go over a little bit some of the up and coming things we're going to be doing over this next few months. One included thing that we will be doing is this magicalness right here. Zip. We will be at Fan Expo New Orleans, January 10th through the 12th of 2025 at the New Orleans Ernst N. Memorial Convention Center. We'll be there with all kind of people, including Michael J. Fox, Leah Thompson, Christopher Lloyd, and the gentleman that plays Biff Tannen and Tom Wilson at the convention in January 10th through the 12th. Of all kind of goodies. Here are some of the guests they have lined up for this amazing event going to be taking place on January 10th to the 12th. Everyone joining us. My name is Owen C. Cotter, and you're watching SciFiction on all simulcasting channels. You got Michael J. Fox at Fan Expo New Orleans. You've got Christopher Lloyd, Jodie Whittaker, one of the awesome Doctor Who's, Anthony Daniels from Star Wars, the new Superman, Tyler. I never recognize his name. Hochilin, Alan. Oh man, Alan's awesome. He's from Resident Alien, of course, and Firefly, and Star Wars. And he also played in the movie I saw the other night called Transformers: Dark of the Moon. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of that. And he plays this awesome like assassin dude named Dutch that is like the assistant, like chauffeur, and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. And it's one of the main co-stars in Transformers: Dark of the Moon. Eugenia Carlo, Tom Welling, Superman himself, Clark Kent. Tons of actors and actresses at this event, as well as comic creators, cosplayers, you name it. Michael Rosenbaum, host of the Inside of You broadcast, awesome, a super cool cat. Hung with him a few years back, awesome dude. Wow, James Tolkien, he's from Top Gun too, so, including Back to the Future. And you got Maya Goldie Wilson. Donald's going to be the heck yeah, dude, that's badass. Claudia Wells, super cool lady. I talked to her a few years back. So you got Harry Waters Jr., who's cousin Marvin. Marvin, you got to listen to this. He's like playing the song Johnny Be Good. Can't beat that. I was like, actually, that scene is, I have to tell you some stuff, but historically music relevant to a very, it's a reference actually. Corbin Blue, High School Musical. Well, they got some High School Musical actors. Oh, Brandon Rogers from YouTube. It's a pretty well-known YouTuber there. So there's a full lineup of some, and they're adding guests as we speak. Also got animation voices. Tons of good stuff. This is packed jam full. These are just the ones they've announced. They've got more I think they're going to be announcing. Let's see what else we got on the digital awesomeness here on SciFiction. My name is Owen C. Cotter, and you are watching SciFiction. Sci-fi fantasy. They've got a little bit of everything. Everything by meet sci-fi fantasy actors, and they got panels. A lot of good panels at Fan Expo New Orleans. There's a whole creator stage they've got there, and of course the main stage with all the actors. You're at sci-fi community. It is loaded with pop culture goodness, and the one in New Orleans is one of our favorites. Convention foam fighting, acting out foams, and you get Blast the Storm. That's a cool one. I've actually blasted and got the Stormtroopers. Cool. Star Wars March. You grab all your sabers. These March have a blast. Sci-fi community. This year they've got a lot of groups. They've got our friends at Crew to Who, too. Bast Alpha Garrison 501st. Our friends at Louisiana Ghostbusters. May the 4th be with you. Rebel Legion, of course, the flip of the coin for the 501st. South Central Droid Builders Club. Awesome builds on those. The Mandalorian Mercs, the Mandalorian Protectors, the Watch, and the USS New Orleans with guess who? Randolph Allen, the Vice Admiral of the Federation himself. He'll most likely be there. Come say hi. They do a lot of good work for charity, and they're amazing. And you got panels, tons of panels. Stuff right there. I believe they're going to have a DeLorean present too in the at the event. Podcast feature this year are Appetite for Collectibles podcast. If you love Star Wars and pop culture collectibles, there you go. Comic Book Club podcast. This one's been popping up for a while. It's been about 20 years. They've been doing for over 18 years. I believe, not totally sure, they may be on radio as well. Death Do Us Part podcast. The Fandoms Anonymous Entertainment Podcast, that's Malcolm's. The Comic Book Ben Comic Book Podcast. The Hangover podcast, which is an interesting one, deals with top funniest stories and like pop culture and good stuff. Hungry Trilobite podcast. It's kind of a, I guess you could call that a sci-fi maybe. Directing film and star. Oh, it has a charity. Cool. Fave 5 from fans, and that is join the host on the journey exploring the shared passions that bring fans together across the globe. Every episode's a heartfelt love letter to the magical fan. You gotta love that. It's magical awesomeness. That's pretty cool. And they've got community zones. So we got on that. Different fandom groups, whole bunch of ones we've already gone over, and the local groups too, which are really cool. They've got some events here. It looks like the Louisiana RetroCon. We're in New Orleans, like a horror thing, animes. It's cool. Really nice. I know them. Renaissance Living History. This is pretty cool. These are all charities that are going to Aerial Space Squad, the Coast Con, which is amazing. We love Coast Con. I think they're coming up on their 50th year. The Autism Foundation is a good one too. If you ever on Biloxi in March this year, 2025, highly recommend checking out Coast Con. It's really kind of just a really family-oriented, laid-back event with a lot of cool guests, a lot of good programming too. It's I got a cool little vendors hall. It's at the Coliseum Convention Center down there in Biloxi, Mississippi in March. So check out CoastCon. Very cool. Cosplay groups. There's also cosplayers. Sorry if my voice is a little hoarse. I've been talking for 4 hours on a conference call and dealing with some awesome stuff coming up. Gee, the fans will know. You got to have some Coca-Cola's diet. It's actually Coke Zero, which is pretty good too. They're not paying me to sell this Coca-Cola, but I have had dinner with one of the shareholders. She's super cool. And the majority, her husband loves pinball and video games. Believe it or not, I don't know if she's still alive. It was a while back, but super cool lady. And her husband loves video games. There's some of the cosplayers. Where are the featured ones, though? Oh, here we go. Guests, celebrities. Yep. Oh, we got to grab it. Cosplayers, there we go. Which one? They've had a lot of positive and very cool cosplayers in the past. And I don't know who's this year's. Astrolens, Cybergab, Luxtees, cosplay Luna Rose, and he's really good, by the way. Kettle Briar's Workshop's amazing. Super cool, dude. All guests include, we're going to go over this and we're going to kick on because we're going to be showcasing Winifred Philips here shortly will be joining us. She has an amazing new project, which is based on a very retro game. We're going to go over that. I'm going to clock out of this real quick and stop sharing that window. And we are going to bring up this amazing, awesome thing we got here going on, which you may or may not have heard, depending how old the people are watching. It could be now because they got a modern thing. Wizardry, Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord, music by Winifred Philips, who's a lot of awards, and she's this year's now nominated for a Grammy Award for Best Score Soundtrack for Video Games and Other Interactive Media. Amazing composer, researching all of her due diligence. Absolutely amazing. And this is what I wanted to show everybody here, this super cool video. So I'm going to let this play for a little bit, and then we will bring her on. Greetings, everyone on the Sci-Fiction Awesomeness. My name is Owen Cotter. As you've been watching, Winifred's in the waiting room. We're about to bring her on here shortly. We're going to talk about her amazing new project she's involved with and her awesome Grammy-nominated awesomeness. Here she is. Bring her on here now. Winifred, can you see and hear me?
I can indeed. So nice to see you, Owen.
Awesome as well. A pleasure as well. We've been pumping out your stuff for the last 5 or 10 minutes on the internet, showing the Wizardry trailer and all the good music. Can you tell us, first off, thank you for joining us on the show.
My
Can you
pleasure.
pleasure's all mine. I was researching. You've done a lot of awards with video games and all kind of other goodies. What's this new project about? What do we got going on here? Some really cool stuff, it looks like, for sure.
Oh gosh, it's an amazing project. It's Wizardry Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord, and there's such a great story to it. The original game was developed in 1981 by two Cornell University students, and it's considered to be one of the best RPGs of all time. It established the party-based dungeon crawler genre, and it was heavily based on the tabletop role-playing game tradition. It really opened up a whole world for enthusiasts of D&D and other tabletop role-playing games to start jumping into computer gaming. It was developed for the Apple II in Pascal. And it's one of the best games ever made. And so when Digital Eclipse decided they wanted to remake it in the Unreal Engine, they
Okay.
contacted me to do the music for it. Because one of the interesting things about it is that the original game had no music. It had next to no sound. I think the only thing you heard was a little kind of beeping sound when you hit a wall.
Like a little when you click the mouse or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the idea is that you're wandering around this underground dungeon, and the visuals were pretty simple. I mean, considering the time, it was just a wireframe dungeon, and you could really see where you were going. And a lot of the times, you were hitting walls. So the only sound you got was that sound when you hit a wall.
Right.
And so there wasn't any music involved in it. And the remake was based very in a dedicated way to the original game. So, which made it really interesting to work on, because I kind of had to think about what could I do musically
Mhm.
to be true to the original game. I mean, Digital Eclipse is amazing. They're kind of considered the Criterion films of games.
More or less.
Yeah,
That's true.
like the Criterion Collection,
Right,
because
the Criterion Collection of all the good DVDs and Blu-rays of awesome.
yeah, they try to bring the history of video gaming to modern audiences by preserving what was wonderful about it, while also freshening it and making it accessible. So
Right.
what they did here is, as you can see from these gorgeous pictures,
It's absolutely gorgeous.
yeah, they adapted it and made it to made fleshed everything out visually and made
Right.
it so that it really kind of expressed the core idea of that very RPG, D&D aesthetic and gameplay mechanic. You're building a party of adventurers. You're going into the dungeon to find the evil wizard Werdna and to retrieve the magic amulet that he stole. So, and
Nice.
that yeah, it's a simple story, but it's just an excuse to just fight hordes and hordes of monsters, and it's
Right.
such a hard game too. There's permadeath, and you can it's super difficult. You can lose your party members at any moment.
Oh,
Yeah, and it's very difficult to get them back. You can take them to the temple to be revived, but that's not a given. And sometimes you can't even find them. Their bodies in the dungeon, and you have to go back with other party members to try to find them. And back in the 80s, when people were playing it, they would have graph paper to map
right.
the dungeon because there was no heads-up display to let you know where you were.
No
So
3D either.
yeah, oh, it was really difficult. So the idea of preserving that experience was a big part of what Digital Eclipse wanted to do with Wizardry. So they created a game that really that was a love letter to the original game and developed by Surtech. It essentially expressing what made that game so great while also bringing some visual excitement to it. And when they contacted me to do the music, that the exciting part about that was I didn't have a format to go by. I could kind of think
Hmm.
about what we wanted to do musically with the game, and we had a lot of interesting discussions at the beginning. And partly because it's such a dark game, your characters can die at any time, and you're spending a lot of time in in it just like that, dungeons full of
Skeletons right there
skeletons.
with swords on them.
Yeah, yeah, dungeons full of skeletons, really scary stuff. And so we were thinking, maybe we were gonna do like a really dark score, like an almost Viking, Nordic influenced instrumentation, stuff like that. And then we started thinking about the manual for the original Wizardry, and I don't know if you've ever had a
Oh
chance.
yeah,
You see
old
them?
computer games just came with those like manuals. It's like you got a box, you get a big manual, a bunch of
Oh, yeah,
floppy disks or whatever.
yeah, well, this is one of the earliest, games that had like a lush manual that came along with it. I mean, most of the time, games that were being released then were coming in little Ziploc bags. So,
Right.
yeah, this was really early days. So, having a game that, came with it in a lovely box with a dragon on the cover and a printed manual with, illustrations from the artist, who did a lot of illustrations for Dragon magazine.
Oh,
So,
very.
yeah, so that you could definitely feel the D&D vibes running through the whole thing, but also like there's like a sense of humor to it.
Right. Ooh,
It
look at that dragon. That's gorgeous.
oh, oh,
I haven't
yeah.
seen. It's awesome.
Yeah, gosh, I love all of the monsters you get to fight. Yeah, these are some really cool this we're looking at the bestiary right here where you can look at all of the monsters you fought, and it
Mhm.
gives you information about where you found them in the dungeon and, like, their stats and things. Because you fight some of these monsters repeatedly as you're wandering and exploring, and it's nice to kinda get a sense of what you've learned as you go along, so that you can kind of, strategize about how to face each one. It's really
Mhm.
cool, yeah.
That is
So
super cool.
yeah, so we were looking at the manual and how almost lighthearted it was. It wasn't as dark as we were thinking, and,
Right.
that's when we started, like, the development team, we and I had conversations about pulling back from that, like, Viking, doom and gloom feel, and,
Yeah.
I started pushing for a more, medieval Renaissance approach, just to
Nice.
yeah, well, that's really the essence of fantasy tabletop role-playing gaming, really.
Pretty much. Yep.
Yeah, and what were we doing if not saluting that culture and those gamers? And that's the heart of what the game was. It was what those 2 Cornell University students were trying to do in the first place. They were trying
For
to
sure.
create a game that gave you that experience. So that's where I went with the score after that. Just really diving into medieval composition technique and harmonies and form, looking at the history of it and the instrumentation, and it was so much fun and so interesting to kind of dive into that, and so I really enjoyed that part of the project.
Looks absolutely amazing. And the original 81 game was vector based with point and click, kind of like the OG dungeon
Mhm.
crawlers. This new game is similar to that, but with a whole modern, vibe with 3D and all the gorgeous graphics.
Mm.
First off, for the fans joining us, my name's Owen Cotter. This is Winifred Phillips.
Uh,
She's about to be nominated for a Grammy Award here for game composer from video games, fantasy, dungeon crawlers, and awesomeness. I want to ask you, you've done a lot of games, including, I believe, God of War, if I'm not correct.
yeah.
Uh, this game, how does it stand out, differed from some of the other games you worked on? Is it any similarities in there too?
Oh yeah. Well, this project has really been the culmination of my career so far. Getting a Grammy nomination for Wizardry has been just so exciting. I mean that
Congratulations, by the way, on that.
Thank you. But my first project as a game composer was God of War. So the original, the game that started it all. So that was immense fun and really interesting work to do. I was just lucky to have contacted Sony when they were looking to build the composer team for that project.
Okay.
There were a few of us composing music for the original God of War. I One of the interesting parts of my participation in the project, I
Mm.
composed a bunch of atmospheric and
Okay.
tense music, some actiony music, and for the game. But I also was the singing voice of one of the characters.
Hmm.
If you've played the original God of War, there is the Desert of Lost Souls.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Very cool.
you follow the
Yeah.
siren's voice
Yeah.
through the desert until you find her and then you rip her head off. But, but that's my voice when you're, going through the desert. That's me singing that, and that was a lot of fun to do, and a great way to begin a project, like a career as a game composer to get to do something like that.
What are some of the other games and things you've done in between, and maybe non-game related?
Oh gosh, well, I my career is mostly focused on video games. I've done a lot of different kinds of projects and properties. I've done games in the Total War franchise. I did a game in the Assassin's Creed franchise.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done almost all of the Little Big Planet games
Hmm.
except for the first one. I've composed music for, and the latest Sackboy Big Adventure.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done a lot of, tie-ins to, movie properties like, Shrek the 3rd, Speed Racer,
Lots of
Char
Trek. Trek's coming up the fifth one here soon.
Oh,
Yeah,
really? Oh,
you
that's
see announced
fun.
there. They think they're doing a fifth one.
Oh, nice. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, The Da Vinci Code, yeah, the thing projects Speed Racer, which I really love.
Oh, anime classic. I love Speed Racer.
Ah, me
Amazing.
too. The video game was developed by She Interactive, and,
Okay.
it's a fantastic game. It was developed for the Wii, so if you ever get a chance to play that, it's a real classic. It's kind of like a cult hit at this point, so it had a long life, kinda like the movie itself. It got
Oh
developed.
yeah, they had a live action too. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
The one
well,
with what's the actor from? Is the guy he was like more like known for the late '90s and stuff, but he's been
I
in
think
some other films.
Emile Hirsch.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
really
yeah,
good.
and the actor going to forget his name, from Roseanne, what was
John Goodman? Oh
yes,
no, you're talking about John Goodman, right?
yes, played his
Yeah,
father, yeah,
yes,
which
yeah.
was
Mhm.
fantastic, and, the actor from Lost, I'm forgetting his name,
Was
was,
it? Well, there's French Hot Chow, and there's several others on there.
yeah, played Racer X, so,
Oh, Racer X.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
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 the other
yeah.
racer.
Oh, great fun. So it was a wonderful project to work on, and I got to compose a lot of, fun, kind of techno jazz, that sort of pay tribute to the kind of super spy, feeling that you get from the car. I mean, when they talk
Right,
about
right.
the original, the original source material, it was supposed to have been influenced by James Bond's ca car.
More or less. More or
Yeah,
less. Have
yeah.
you? Speaking of that, anime related, you may. This is a very long franchise with this, but Lupin the Third's one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Lupin's awesome. He's kind of got that kind of spy James Bond, but
Mhm.
he always got that cop patrolling. He's like kind of got the James Bond vibe. That's why I brought it up.
Oh, that's so much fun. It really is. I mean, it's so great. I love working on projects that have that super spy feeling. One of
Mhm.
my more recent projects was called Spider. It was
Hmm.
developed by it was a game that was about like a tiny robotic spider.
Oh yeah.
Developed by Sumo Digital, and it's sort of a 1960s aesthetic world, so it's like a James Bond feeling. So I got a lot to compose a lot of sort of James Bond
That's
style
awesome.
music. Oh, I love doing that. That was great fun, and funny because you're doing this sort of like broad jazzy swagger, but for a
Right.
tiny spider about this big. So it was great fun.
That's awesome. The music, you've also had your music played, I believe, in like amphitheaters and a lot of things with media, including BBC broadcasting.
Mm.
And What are some of the places your music, or you played your music at, and like in big wherever in the countries or different areas?
Oh, yeah. Well, the biggest, experience I've had with that was when my music from Assassin's Creed Liberation was included in the Assassin's Creed Symphony World Tour.
Oh
But
wow. Okay.
yeah, 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 that was just mind-blowing. I got a chance to attend the concert in Montreal, and,
Okay.
so they brought me up on the stage for that one, which was really, like, an honor and great fun. But the Assassin's Creed World Tour has been everywhere and at this point. It's been, all over the world and lots of wonderful, venues. So it's been really exciting to be a part of that. And, um, and it was great to have Assassin's Creed Liberation sort of recognized in that sort of
Mhm.
community of composers. There are a lot of us now who have composed music for Assassin's Creed games, but I love the fact that Assassin's Creed Liberation has this role as
Right.
the one where we got to see the first female assassin,
Yep.
which I just
She was awesome too. Amazing.
I loved her, Aveline.
Yep.
She was so
Mhm.
great, and such a compelling character and a great story, so I had a really great time working on that.
Very cool. And for people, I just got to ask this question for people that are trying to get up the chain, not just in video game composing, but any kind of composing, whether it be movies, television, games. Is there some kind of like advice or some kind of counsel you could give them to keep them on the track and then make them go shoot up to everywhere in the space?
Well, absolutely. Gosh. Well, the first thing I'm gonna have to say is, I did write a book called A Composer's Guide to Game
Oh,
Music.
really?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
published by the MIT Press, and, it's actually being used in a lot of, universities now
Hmm.
for, like, coursework, in the, game music composition majors. So,
Wow.
so that's been, really cool, but that I wrote, I think right after I had completed work on the Assassin's Creed project, and I just kind of felt like it was time to share what I knew about music composition for games. And at the time, there weren't really that many projects. I mean, that many books that had been written that were just about game music composition. A lot of them were both composition and sound design rolled into
Okay.
one. Well, with the idea they sort of thought that one person was going to be doing it all, and
Right.
which I think might have been true then. It certainly isn't true anymore. But as a result, it kind of focused more on the tech and the
Okay.
logistical stuff, and they weren't really talking about like
The
creative.
actual
Yeah, yeah,
music.
the music, like the creative kind of problems that we'd have and the different way of thinking about music that you have to have when you're composing it for games, and how music is more fluid, from within a game construct and has to be structured in a different way. So, yeah, it was fun to write that. I also keep a blog that is posted
Okay.
on a monthly basis on gamedeveloper.com, in which I
Very
talk about sort of share my current ideas about what I'm thinking about in terms of game music composition, and like once a year I'll put up a big list of resources just a ton of links to all sorts of different like resources a game composer might be able to get some help from, or like a new up and coming aspiring game composer who's trying to look for support or a sense of community, or like more information about the sort of the tools and the ideas that we need to be aware of. So yeah.
That's amazing. I didn't even know you had a book that was all about that and all that
Mm.
jazz. That's super cool.
Well,
The fans, and including me, I would like to know if there are any properties or projects, not just video game based, maybe TV shows, maybe movies that you'd like to be involved in sooner or later.
oh gosh, yeah, yeah, absolutely. I would love to be involved in. I do have a soft spot in my heart for anything that's got like a mythological basis. I mean, that's kind of why wizardry was so much fun for me, because it has this sense of the texture of mythology. But before I was working in video games, I was actually working in radio for
Okay.
a
Right.
national public radio series called Radio Tales, and it adapted classic works of literature for the radio, and it had like wall to wall music. So there were like over 100 episodes of that series by the time we were finished with it, and it was really my opportunity to learn about what it is to be a media composer. But a lot of the episodes were very science fiction, fantasy oriented, and
Yeah.
I particularly loved the ones like Beowulf and
Mhm.
Arabian Nights and
Ooh,
The
Odyssey.
Odyssey. Oh, yeah, I
Mhm.
love those. But
Iliad and the Odyssey, yeah, it's
yeah.
like they made a movie on that, I think, or something like that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's such
TV movie, rather.
yeah, such great source material. It's a
Yeah.
yeah, big storytelling like almost Shakespearean in the sense that everything is a metaphor and all of these larger than life ideas kind of still resonate and feel profound to us because of the sort of like the timelessness of the stories that are being told. So it's always been really special to me, the idea of doing that kind of work. So anything that kind of touches on that area of narrative is really exciting to me. So, I mean, in science fiction, we've got all these wonderful franchises that really are treading that ground, and we I think we do have a sense of a modern mythology that's happening in these sorts of franchises, like the Marvel superheroes, kind of feel like
Love
our
to see their movie, whole MCU Bible. Supposedly, there's some big, massive thing. I heard about it. I don't know if it's true or not, but
oh wow, wow
got
that
all the, like, the mappings and the strategic stuff for like in. Well, it's based on
yeah.
all the comics. We can't. You got to have that as your reference, you know.
Yeah, that's true, but you do they're certainly keeping it, fresh in the sense that, you
Mhm.
don't feel like it's just retreading the same ground. There definitely
There
is
are
a
so many superheroes and people and things to pull from that universe. Same thing with
mm,
DC and
yeah.
especially those two. Most people, like young people, like you ask them, a few of them will know, maybe 6 out of 10. DC Comics. Do you know what that means? What DC stands for?
I do not, actually, I never thought about
Detective
it.
Comics was the original.
Really?
Yeah. So you have like Detective Comics, and which was what they first showcased Batman in, and
Mm.
eventually he got his own series of Detective Comics. Marvel, I believe, was originally Timely or something like that, but Marvel then
Really?
transitioned.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a video I watched on YouTube. The famous rapper Two Chains.
Hmm.
He interviews different entrepreneurs and stuff, and this guy had all these comics. And the coolest thing I thought about it was there's this free giveaway comic that actually was done by early Marvel that predates with reprint, or actually the same story, rather not reprints, predates Marvel Comics issue 1. So that
Oh,
is
wow.
Marvel Comics issue 1. I thought that was really fascinating.
Oh, that is I mean, it would, like, redefine the value and understanding of the history of Marvel Comics if there's something that predated it. I mean, it's like unearthing some sort of archaeological find, isn't it? Yeah.
Close to There's only like 4 or 5 of those in the world, and most of them are graded, so you can't, unless cracking it open and breaking the price value, actually read
Mm.
those things, see what actually is in it, because the story's supposed to be a little different. The actual first Marvel Comics
Oh,
from the
wow.
OG days.
Oh, well, but isn't Marvel so wonderful about creating alternate versions of their own
Oh,
histories?
yeah, parallel universe, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so I could see them just looking at that and saying, "Well, it's a different direction, but why not?" I mean,
Mhm.
they're constantly rebooting, which is, it's fun because then, like, kinda like mythology, it's a what you
Sure.
these characters go through so many permutations, and they move into different cultures, and they get rediscovered and then reinvented based
Mhm.
on the people who are absorbing the stories and making them their own, so just I think there's just a great parallel between that and what's happening now with those kinds of like, larger than life superhero characters.
The landscape, like we've talked about for the last few minutes, is so widely vast and versed with, like, you got everything from science fiction to video games to anime, everything and beyond, and fantasy, and you name it. What is kind of a question I just came up off the top of my head just now? What do you see for not just video games, but the overall? What do you see for the future of all of pop culture, in your words?
Yeah. Well, that's so interesting. I think
Came up with it just now.
it's a great question. I think right now we're sort of in like a little bit of a holding pattern because the epic scope and breadth of storytelling just reached this plateau. Don't it, I mean, and I think we're all sort of kind of feeling it that we've sort of we've explored the boundaries of what pure spectacle can deliver to us, and we've sort of had our senses, like, blasted by these enormous
Overload,
yeah,
but
by
good overload
yeah, yeah,
nonetheless.
yeah, yeah, by these enormous adventures and all of these myth like, grand and sweeping storytelling. I feel like maybe at this point we might, step back a little bit
Yeah.
so that we can
Come with some original ideas too. I mean, there's a lot
yeah.
of reboots in there.
Yeah, so we can sort of build again. It's kind of like with moving back to wizardry, like when you rediscover a story that is kind of at the kernel of where the original love for a genre came from, and then you start anew from there. It builds this new zest for the entire genre, like the
Sure.
idea that that wizardry can bring you back to the way you felt when you first started playing a tabletop role playing game, and make you feel like the kid you were when you first discovered it, and then move you from that point back into a larger breadth of storytelling, and move you into a different direction. It's kind of like a more fundamental reboot, really. It's like saying, okay, let's peel back the layers of Flash and remind ourselves of the simple heart of what makes us love the things we love. And, I think wizardry really does that so well, and so it's part of the reason why I was so excited to compose the music for it, but I think that might be something that we'll be looking at more in different, in different forms of entertainment across, like, the speculative genres across science fiction, fantasy, horror, uh, peeling back the layers of building, the way we've been building up complexity in these worlds, and returning to the core of what made us all love them, because that can feel just as fresh
Mhm.
when you haven't been expressing it with that simplicity, and when you haven't been appealing to people's initial love of what of the heart of what made them affiliate their own personality with with a franchise, or a character, or even a genre of storytelling. I just think that could be where we're headed. But at this point, things feel a little uncertain. I think across all of the franchises, things are being reevaluated in terms of what's gonna happen next. I'm kind of excited to see what's going to come next.
Me too.
Yeah, I think there could be a lot of fresh exploration. I think that the ground is fertile for that kind of creative storytelling, looking backwards in order to find something new.
That's all, man. That's a better response than I can give. That's absolutely amazing. So, you mean science fiction and fantasy and superheroes? I mean, you got so much to pull from. You know, a lot of like Marvel, had one of their main actors, Robert Downey Jr., just announced he's going to play in Avengers Doomsday, which I'm pretty excited about. Because if you look at the comics, Iron Man did take on the mantle of Doctor Doom. So that's
Oh,
comic
wow.
accurate.
Yeah,
You
that's
fans that don't believe in that, but go Google it. It's true.
oh,
And DC as well. I mean, they've got this whole new gauntlet of films and projects that were announced last year. And James Gunn, the brother of Sean Gunn, who's now the new CEO of DC, I am so looking forward to seeing some of these things, some of the stuff we've never even seen before. I mean, they've
fantastic,
got
yeah.
all kind of newer versions of things like Superman Legacy. It looks awesome. You even got Crypto the dog is going to be at the super. Yeah, he's going to be and Lex Luthor and all of them. That's going to be absolutely amazing.
Oh, that's
But I got
fantastic.
Oh, that's gonna be absolutely amazing. I'm
Mm,
looking forward to that. And you got the Green Lantern. You got a whole bunch of other things that never been
yeah.
developed either for live action too, which is super cool. But I got to ask, you originally earlier said that you had a background in radio.
Mm.
What are your thoughts? I mean, just not just radio, but the future of radio and where radio can be used, applied to not just pop culture, but other entertainment factors down the road. Is
Oh,
radio still jamming, or what you get? I hope so.
well, I actually think radio, and the affiliated, podcasts, and,
Mhm.
all of the audio storytelling that's been going on right now is amazing. When I was doing, National Public Radio, there were only a few venues in which audio creators could, express their work, and, tell stories and documentaries, and in our case, tell a narrative, and weave storytelling. And there weren't a lot of venues to do that in, so we felt very fortunate to be able to have like a venue on NPR to be able to do that. But there wasn't a lot of ways to get your work out there if you're an audio creator. And now it's amazing how much is being created, and it's just a wealth of fantastic work that's going on. I mean, I listen to all kinds of podcasts, and they're
Me too.
really yeah, and they're just fantastic ways for people to sort of stretch their creative muscles. I mean, it's a for me, it was a wonderful place to start and learn, and I really did kind of think of it as a boot camp for me in terms of learning how to be a media composer. It was creating a lot of music, and it was early in my career, and I had really the honor and opportunity to create music for a lot of wonderful intellectual properties like War of the Worlds, The Telltale Heart, the Time Machine, things like
H.G. Wells' goodness.
yeah, Follow the House of Usher. Those were fantastic opportunities to just see what I could do creatively, and but I think that that's something that is available to people through the podcast culture, essentially, the ability to create this sort of content and to stretch their muscles creatively and see what they can do. It's harder when you don't have a venue to be able to create the art when you're young and you're early in your career. I know in game composition, it's hard for young game composers trying to break into the system because they don't have the opportunity to create music for games. And I'm always talking about how if you're a student, you're in a great position to be able to join student teams, or you can join game jams that they have conventions where you can just jump in and create games on the fly, which is really great. And it's an opportunity to like stretch those creative muscles and learn while doing, which is one of the best ways to learn. And so it's a fantastic thing to be able to do. But just as a media composer in general, I think podcasting and radio as an extension of that, because I do think they now exist in sort of the same ecosystem, that they are a wonderful way for a media composer to learn the ropes of creating music, and in an environment that's more open to newcomers to like create art and to reach people. So it's a really great opportunity.
That's wow. That's amazing. Uh, the game Wizardry, is it out yet, or is it coming out? And when should you know? Like, are you going to be coming any events to showcase it upcoming soon, or any of the music here coming shortly?
Well, the game is out. It came out in May.
Oh, cool.
Before that, it was in early access, which was actually kind of cool because I was composing the music while people were playing the game, to which I loved. You compose a batch of tracks and it goes out into the recent build of the game, and then the gamers are on bulletin boards talking about what they like, and then you go back and you create more, and it's very inspiring to have that kind of relationship. It's the first time I've ever had the opportunity to create music while the game was being played, so I love
That's
that. That was
very
really cool. But it's been coming out recently in physical editions because it was
Hmm.
a digital-only product, like a lot of games are nowadays, but now it's been coming out in physical editions. Limited Run Games has a version. There is a version from Super Deluxe in Japan. The soundtrack album that was nominated for a Grammy is now on Spotify and
Okay.
Bandcamp. Yeah. And there's also a Japanese physical CD version of it's like an alternate version of the album, but it's in Japan, but it is available to import. So
I'd love to check that out. I have an old CD player I found the other day. It popped that in, boop, and started playing it. That's awesome.
oh, cool.
The For people, I think a lot of fans watching that are into like role playing games, which I am too, and Dungeons and Dragons and all the
Mhm.
goodies like Magic. If they're not so much in the video games, but they do that genre, like fantasy RPG, what would you tell them if they're starting to get in the video games or may want to get in the video games to start to play this game? What are some like advice or things you'd like them to check out in this new game?
Oh gosh, it's a this game is a fantastic game for newcomers because it is deceptively simple. You start off in a way that feels like it's very intuitive, particularly if you are a tabletop role playing gamer. You look at the stats and the setup, and it's like, oh yeah, I know this, and so you can start playing it with a sense of familiarity and kind of a warmth. But then it kicks your ass. It's a very difficult game. Pardon my French, but it is a really tough game to play, and your party will probably likely die, and yeah, the Digital Eclipse recommends that you don't get emotionally attached to any of your characters because they will go they will go bye-bye. But that's a part of what wizardry is. It has a very old school feel to it. And in a lot of ways, if you're a newcomer to gaming, playing Wizardry is the opportunity to have the experience of jumping into the video gaming life with a game structured the way it would have been for people jumping in the 80s.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that you don't have to enter gaming with some of the impediments that face newcomers jumping into modern games with very complicated user interfaces and tons and tons of buttons and to deal with, and very complicated heads-up displays, and all of the structural complexity of modern gaming, which we're all used to because those of us who have been playing for a long time, it's just natural. It's like breathing. We know where all of that is. But if you're just coming into gaming, it's really bewildering. It feels like an arcane discipline that
Yeah.
you need some sort of mentor to sort of usher you into it. And a game like this isn't like that. It was structured for people from the 80s who weren't playing a lot of games and weren't familiar with a ton of complexity in terms of the way in which they would physically interact with it, and the way in which they would navigate it. So in that sense, it is a good game for newcomers. It requires a certain degree of patience and yeah, and some determination. But it's in a lot of ways, the oldest school gaming that you can think of also kind of relied on that sense of patience in terms of beating a game, like exploring its nooks and crannies, and really mastering it, as a personal accomplishment. It has that feeling to it, but with the purest expression of that experience. So
That's all.
I think it could be a good entry game, but for somebody who has like the grit to keep at
Right.
it and knows that there's going to be a lot of trial and error.
Wow, that's awesome. The game is already out. What is it only on PC or other platforms? Are they planning to do other platforms?
No,
Or?
it's on the Nintendo Switch. It's
Okay,
pretty much pretty much everything. The Xbox, the PlayStation 4 and 5, the PC. It's pretty much everywhere. I don't think it's on Mac yet, but I'm not sure about that,
it will
honestly.
be. You got to get it, Apple. You got to get it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I wanted to first off thank you for joining the broadcast. Second off, is there any upcoming things or things you want to shout out, links or anything you want to mention to everybody on the fan base?
Oh, well, absolutely. Well, gosh, the only other thing I could bring up, that other than what's happening with Wizardry right now, which I'm really excited about, is my next project is going to be coming out, I think, in December, is Flint Treasure of Oblivion, and it's a pirate game. So
Oh, nice. Very cool.
yeah, yeah.
We just got back from a Renaissance Festival and Renaissance Festival and Pirate Fair out on the
Ah,
Gulf Coast. And my buddy is like Daniel is the hugest pirate fan on earth. And he dressed up full blown cosplay, like gorgeous. He had all the swords and the muskets and all the bling and everything. And
oh, that's
that was an interesting event because all medieval and fantasy and, a little bit of Wild Wild West, a little bit of everything actually.
oh,
Pirates hit.
that is
Yeah.
so amazing. That's something I should mention. One of the things that I've really loved about doing the music for Wizardry and having the soundtrack come out is that it has been used a lot by folks who are tabletop role playing, and
Oh,
also
wow.
people who are doing Red Fair, and who are LARPing, and
Mhm.
that is just I can't tell you how exciting that is for me.
Awesome. That's super
Yeah.
cool.
I love that so much. That makes me so happy when people talk about how they're playing my music while they're doing a tabletop campaign, or they're playing the music while they're live action role playing. That tickles me to no end. I love that because it's the soul of being a composer for somebody who loves fantasy and wants to bring it into their life. Having somebody bringing my music into that part of their life it's a meaningful invitation for a composer. It's a compliment, and so it means a lot to me.
It's amazing. I look forward to playing this game. I got a Switch. I'm going to go download it tonight and check it out. Winifred, I wanted to thank you so much for joining us.
Oh,
I hope to have you on. If you have any more games or any goodies, feel free to always hit me up on the awesome of sci fiction and beyond.
oh, this is such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Owen. This was great fun, and thanks to the viewers of Sci Fiction. It's a fantastic podcast, and
Thank you. Thank you, viewers.
I'm very honored.
Honored to have you on. Thank you for contacting us. Winifred, you have a beautiful evening. It's Owen for Sci Fiction, scifiction.com, signing off.